Welcome, one and all esports fans, back to another exciting season on the PCS. I am, of course, Pyrotechnics, your play-by-play caster for this evening. Joining me on this broadcast is the wonderful, the biggest brain in, I'm just going to go ahead and dare say it, like all of SEA. It is Clement K2. Hey, how is it going, my dude? I am so excited to be back for another season. The Spring Split's going to be great. We have a whole bunch of new faces, a whole lot of untested talent. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we got new intros, new logos, new faces, but hey, at least us two casters, we're still the same guys. It's been almost 6 months until we finally start 2022 in the PCS, and there's just so much new things to share.
Absolutely. We have so many new players, so many new teams, in fact, practically a majority of all of them to go through, and we're going to see a lot of those faces tonight. Before we get into all of it, I would like to take a brief moment to thank our wonderful sponsors that help make the PCS Spring Split possible. They are, of course, going to be CTBC Bank and Caliber, and also our broadcast partners, that is Carry Live, Riot Games, and Garena. Thank you for making it all possible and making this split happen. So, Clement, we have so many new faces to check out. We have so many teams to talk about. But I don't want to get carried away with what's new, because a lot of the players that are returning are some really exciting faces, and we have a lot of interesting new team dynamics to talk about as well.
Yeah, I think the big thing, the headlines that you will hear about the PCS is that, oh, Doggo and Maple are now playing in the LPL. We have Gemini going over to 100 Thieves, and we have Chowie going over to Coach TSM. So it sounds like a lot of people have left the region and moved on to major leagues, and you know, we definitely wish the best for them and their personal development, but that also opens up spaces for new players to kind of emerge out of the woodwork, and we will be talking about it. There are three main sources coming out here from the LDL, from the amateur scene, and from the collegiate league here in Taiwan. So don't be worried. Even though the familiar names that you have heard about the PCS might not be here anymore, there are a lot of people to fill those shoes.
It is a talent-rich region, and out of the ashes, you could say, of some exodus, there is going to be a lot of new teams. Top of the order here in our standings, of course, everybody at 0-0 before we play any games, is CTBC Flying Oyster. That's a team that has a lot of faces people will recognize. Other squads, of course, will go through the rest of them, but let's take a look at today's matches. To kick things off, we are going to be getting a pretty interesting one in Deep Cross Gaming versus J-Team. This is a matchup of J-Team and the faces of J-Team past.
Yeah, there are a lot of familiar names. Most of these players on both squads have obviously played on J-Team. Nesty and Hana, that combination is back to challenge JT as they bring in Uniboy and Kongre back onto the roster. And last but not least, I think everyone is looking forward to PSG and Beyond Gaming. As we have mentioned, Maple is not there anymore, Doggo is not there anymore, but as we are going to see in the upcoming graphics, we have new players that are going to try and fill those shoes and give us an exciting match nonetheless.
Absolutely. It is a rematch of the summer finals, and not only that, just a storied rivalry at this point. If anything was true in 2021, it was the fact that PSG and BYG were going toe to toe. And no more was that apparent than their 2 best of 5s towards the end of summer. We did get to see both these squads, of course, at Worlds. And fortunately, even with some lost players, we do have a core intact. But let's talk about our players that are joining right now. There are so many to get through, and we just have to break them down lane by lane by lane. There are a lot of names, so we can't get into all of them, but anybody in particular stand out to you, Clement?
I think Quiet is definitely the one that, out of the top laners, is most interesting to me, because this is a player that came from the championship team in the LSC, which is the League of Legends School Championship, played in Taiwan here. So Quiet has been sort of an MVP top laner in that league, playing a lot of Jace and Camille, and this is an interesting pathway. It's time to really test out if the collegiate system can produce top-level talent.
Absolutely, and I don't think any of the other names here are really any slouches too. You know, one of my eyes I'm keeping on Kurt actually there for Frank Esports and seeing what he can really do, because I have been hearing a few rumbles about what some of these players, not only coming out of collegiate, but also just coming out of, you know, the more amateur cup scene over just across all of that region, really demonstrating a lot of strength for themselves and getting a chance to play on the big stage here. A great opportunity for them, and with so many new players, honestly, it's up for grabs.
Yeah, there's so many different ways that you can become a pro these days, and the pathway that Kurt has taken is to play in the Asian Esports Championship, which is the biggest amateur tournament in Southeast Asia, and he got spotted there. Congratulations to him to finally make it into pro. Going into the jungle position, I think this is where all our eyes are going to be on. It's PSG. No longer do they have River and Maple. River now playing for Dignitas, Maple going over to the LPL once again. They have a Korean duo now in Juhan and Bay. Juhan and Bay both playing from the NS Challengers. They were actually the 3rd place team in the LCK Challengers during the summer playoffs of 2021. So this is definitely, you know, a combo that is going to be very interesting to watch. I think they have a very different style to the way River and Maple played with the roams and stuff. I think these guys are much more team fight focused. So we're going to see how that impacts our best team in the league in PSG.
Absolutely, and you know, you talk about it always can be a little bit seen as risky to try and pick up players from a challenger scene, especially one that is not your own. But clearly, there was something that PSG really liked about both Juhan and Bay. They have a fair bit of experience together, and if I recall correctly, even a little bit on the LCK proper. But they also have, according to their ownership, really been like hitting the books hard to make sure they can bridge the language gap. Ever since they signed with the team, it's just been nonstop Mandarin lessons. So hopefully communication shouldn't be an issue for the new imports.
Yeah, I think that's a great move to have right there, and you really want the team to be on the same page, and I think the LPL has shown that that's always the correct way to go. Now moving on to the mid laners right here, I think Pretender is the one that I think a lot of people are fairly interested. We already talked about Bay, but Pretender was the substitute on PSG behind Maple, and he is on loan, so he could still be the future star of this organization. And, you know, we have heard great things about him. A mage player. Last time we saw him play was in 2018 in the ECS. Played a lot of Aurelia and Yasuo, but right now I think it's all about mages for him, and we're going to see how that does for the new organization.
Absolutely. Now, not only do we got to talk about mid laners, because bot lane is also being infused with a whole lot of talent as well. And the one that really speaks to my mind, I think, is Kriskata, because this is a player that, you know, really is getting a first chance on this type of stage and has been mostly just working off of ladder. Like, I was taking a look at some of the stuff he's been playing over in the Korean Challenger scene, or rather, excuse me, in Korean solo queue, and a lot of it comes down to what we're seeing in the meta. We're seeing the Jinx coming out. We're seeing the Zeri coming out. I'm really excited for the PCS to find its own take on this meta, where the bot lane hyper-scaling carries are starting to take off in this season.
Oh, for sure. We're going to see a lot of Jinxes. Maybe Caitlyn's going to be let out sometime, hopefully. But
maybe
Kriskata,
it's
as a
band
player
right now.
Yeah, that's yeah, if you come from Arcane, I'm sorry, but you're probably not going to see a lot of Caitlyn. Kriskata,
That's
though,
okay, there's Jinx for you.
True. Kriskata has come from that LSC cloth again, and this is a player that's actually been around the scene for quite a while. We think about pro players and think about them like being, you know, in society already, but a lot of them are so young that they can go pro, and then go back to the collegiate scene, and then come back again. So the pathway, it's very interesting to see how players are actually coming up these days and coming into the PCS.
Absolutely. Rounding out our new players, of course, are going to be our supports that are joining the league. You can see there's also a pair of them for Meta Falcon team, who we haven't really talked about that much yet, but we'll get into. This is, of course, a squad that is fully collegiate. In fact, really had their debut there and made the decision to stay together as a roster because they wanted to prove that the idea of a collegiate team could really take off. And, they have some coaching staff that really lend some credence to that theory. Some really well-known names, including one Firefox in the mix.
Oh, this is such an insane experiment from them. They were a team that went 14-0 in the LSC, and they said, we're just going to jump the gap and bridge it directly to professional. They didn't even try to go piecemeal into the professional scene, which is what you mainly expect, since I'll be honest, these players do have some gaps in terms of their LP and their current level, but they wanted to stick together as a group. We're going to see how they're going to do under the guidance of legendary coaches like Firefox and D. And talking about legendary coaches, we have PSG Corgi that just won Worlds coming back to his home region.
Yeah, off of a Worlds victory, World Championship with Edward Gaming, with EDG, comes back and signs with PSG talent. I'm really excited to see how that one plays out. Also, some other names that people might recognize. We talk about some of the coaching staff. LX2 coming in for Meta Falcon team. Jay-Z for Impunity as well. So, we have so many new faces, and it's often the players that we talk about, and, also familiar faces if you are watching the SCA scene, but the coaches too. Sometimes you don't really think about it, but it makes a big difference, especially from everything in the pick ban and how they adapt week over week.
Yeah, we do have some pros coming back in, like Achi. He was on J-Team before and was on the Assassin Squad, now coming back to coach. And I also really like NFT's coaches, Liang. Even though they have D, they have Firefox, they still want to keep the coach that gave them that LCS success into the roster itself and keep them moving towards in the PCS.
Absolutely. So many new people to talk about, and I really wanted to deep dive into everyone, but obviously with so little information to go on, we just have to wait until we see them actually finding their footing on the Rift at this highest level of competition. And we are going to get into our first match of the night. It is Deep Cross Gaming will be starting in this first matchup. And their lineup, of course, is Leaky in the top side, Hana in the jungle, Nesty in the mid, Kriskata and Woody to round things out. And this is a squad that I really do think has a lot to prove, especially for the players that are no longer members of J-Team, their opponents tonight.
Yeah, this is a very fun squad. The team looks extremely familiar because they are essentially 2020 spring J-Team that was the regular season first seed, but they have a new top laner and a new AD carry. We talked a little bit about Kriskata. Let's talk a little bit more about Leaky. This guy has been going into, he is a Korean Challenger player. He plays Challenger in Korean ladder. He's not Korean, excuse me. But he was known previously on Alpha Esports for being a Kale player. And, generally because Hana and Nesty have been more of a utility duo, we expect this team to be very topside focused. We expect Leaky to pull out a lot of his bruisers that he's shown in the past.
Absolutely. So pairing that, you also have that more supportive side for Hana. But let's take a look at J-Team in their proper lineup. There has been some infusion of talent and a couple of roles here. Driver, of course, returning to the top side after benching it for a little while. But really what excites me is to see this duo of Komie and Uniboy, which fans of PSG at Worlds 2020 might recognize.
And fans from MAD from 2018 might recognize as well. This is a very accomplished duo in this region. They have went to Worlds twice already. Uniboy, of course, went to LPL, but unfortunately the teams he were on were not exactly the best. LGD and V5, he had a combined something of less than 20% win rate.
He did not get 5 Vs with that for sure. That was unfortunate.
Yeah.
But he's back in the PCS. We get him back, and that's okay. And, we get Lil V and Enzo to round things out. I really think this is a strong team on paper. And, unlike their opponents, the mid-jungle synergy here and the mid-jungle activeness, I think, is going to be a really big hallmark of this team's strategy.
I'll just say this, but on paper, this is the best mid-jungle duo you're going to get in the PCS, at least this split. And they also got very strong endorsements from PSG's former GM, Glenn. He's moving to North America. He hasn't announced which team, but when we asked him, what team do you think is going to win the PCS? He actually didn't pick PSG. He actually picked this J-Team squad to do it. So very interesting to watch out for this team. And, you know, looking at the rosters, I think they're going to play an exactly opposite style from the side of Deep Cross Gaming, as Driver has been known to be more of a tank. They have been known to be more slow-paced in their bottom lane, more about scaling. So I think we're going to see a clash of top side of the map for Leaky, and then bottom side of the map on J-Team's side for Lil V.
Yeah, and Lil V was always that more stable AD carry bot laner that could really get to the, if you could get him to the late game, he's going to be able to do a lot of work for you. He may not win the game for you, but he certainly won't lose it out. But we'll have to see how it all shakes out as we leave things out of the Rift. It is going to be the pick ban starting things off. Zoe taken off the board, a Jinx ban, blue side, as well as Gwen for Deep Cross Gaming and J-Team. They are hitting the top on Leaky at first, and then moving over to the Xin Zhao and the Karma. Ooh. That does mean the Zeri is left up and available, so Kriskata will get his debut on the newest champion.
Yeah, this one is the champion that everyone is going for. 60+% win rate in 3 different roles in Korean Challenger in the last patch.
Pentakill on its first LCS game too. I mean, it's definitely making waves.
She's a very, very strong champion, but we have to mention we are playing on 12.3, so that does mean her Triforce build is not as favored. The crit build did get a little bit more incentivized. I also want to mention in the ban phase, you always ban Zoe from Uniboy. This is going to be a
yes.
perma-ban this split. Everyone just get used to it.
Yeah, Uniboy will probably go a little bit more utility in that sense, but we'll have to see as the pick bans continue very fast tonight. In fact, the Felios locked quickly by J-Team, as well as the Viego for Kongye. That's a little scary, let's be honest. Leaky's also going to get his hands on the Tryndamere. So just looking at how the comp's shaking out, there's a lot of power picks that were just snapped up quickly because the bans were a little bit more focused this time. And they'll round out the bot lane to finish. Enzo gets his hands on the Nautilus.
Yeah, we are seeing a pretty clear direction from DCG in this draft, and that's going to be the triple dive comp. We have seen a lot of this in the LPL. You pick a fighter in the top lane, you pick Diana, but what I will say about DCG's current comp is they're going blind. They didn't go blind Diana. Diana's not very strong early game, and Tryndamere, they're picking it blind here. That's a lot of confidence coming in from Leaky. We're going to see if it works out or not. We have seen Tryndamere's fail before, so, you know, maybe he can pull off a Doran-esque performance and keep that pick in there, but I do feel like DCG, they have a clear strategy, but I think they're showing their cards a little bit earlier than I would like in this draft.
Yeah, first game of the split, sometimes that happens a little bit. You have a plan, sometimes you stick to it a little bit too well, and you end up revealing more than you wanted to. A pair of side lane bans thrown out at the end there. The Vex will be off the board, as is the Jace, so they are attempting to put Driver as much on the back foot as possible, even though he's more likely to take a tank. We are seeing the Gragas hovered right now, and I think that maybe the lock, it gives a fair amount of front line to J-Team.
It really does. I like this Gragas picks because at Worlds we have seen how Gragas can counteract the Tryndamere. You can even go AP on Gragas, and because your cooldown is shorter on the E compared to the spin in coming in from Tryndamere, you can cancel him out in lane completely, and then in team fights, it's very hard to reset and go in again as a Tryndamere when you have to go over that explosive cast. So I really like what J-Team are doing. They're sticking to their guns, playing that bot lane, playing more towards the bot side strategy, while DCG, Lulu is another one of those great picks if you are going for triple dive. You can keep one of your bruisers alive, and whoa, we have seen Ivern mid in the LCS already. I think they could pick it.
It was just the hover. I mean, I'm excited too. I want to see if that ends up being the way. It's actually going to be a Bard. I think this might be Lulu mid.
Yeah, it is going to be a Lulu mid. So the triple dive is a little bit interesting here because they're putting Zeri in there as well. So I do expect more of a tankier build coming out from her if she's going to be, you know, expected to participate in that one. And, you know, talking about Nesty and Hana, these two guys are not known to be an early aggressive duo. They play a lot of utility, they play a lot of bruisers to push people along the map, and this is right down their alley.
Last pick comes in for J-Team, and it will be the Lissandra, and that just kind of reads to me as like a, you know, a little bit of extra lockdown. Let's hold the line. You know, it's funny. When we saw Kongye last split, he was a part of an HKA squad that pretty much just lived or died by his Blade of the Ruined King, and I almost feel like we're getting a little bit of that deja vu in here for J-Team to start off. Kongye, as a carry player, can completely take over a game, and Viego's a champion that enables that, but Yeah, I guess with Uniboy's Zoe banned out, he just goes kind of a little bit more on a fallback. And I was kind of hoping for something a little bit more bursty, maybe a Syndra coming out, but go off, I guess.
Yeah, I think for J-Team, they have a very, very strong mid-game. Like, if you look at this composition, it's basically impossible for Diana and Tryndamere to make it past the front line of not only the Nautilus lockdown, that champion has 4 crowd control abilities by himself, and then you have Gragas that has a slow, the explosive cast, and then you have Lissandra. So I think for the mid-game teamfights, it's basically impossible for J-Team to lose unless they miss position. But if you go into the late game, I feel like DCG once again will gain the upper hand back because they have all this split pushing potential. And if Zeri does go for the build that we kind of expect with the sort of Triforce build, she's actually a very good side lane split pusher there as well. She has the HP to kind of duke it out with most of the bruisers, and she has a great wall jump to keep her safe there too. So, no, it's mid-game, JT favored, but late game, I actually like DCG a little bit more.
Yeah, and this is interesting. Coming into this, I think looking at just the rosters on paper and trying to get a read on the meta before we actually saw any games, J-Team definitely seemed like the strong favorite far and away. But certainly this shakes things up a little bit if the game goes a little bit late. As far as that's concerned, I think it's going to depend on how the mid-game looks coming out of the lane phase, if there's a significant advantage gain. Again, I'm always looking at what Kongye does early, if he sets up those plays. Also, there's a chance that Gragas starts a roaming and gets him off to a flying start. But all that speculation doesn't even matter because we're about to get the real darn thing. Deep Cross Gaming taking on J-Team for our first match of the PCS Spring Split 2022. And we are underway with some pokes, Clement.
This is the cheese build right out the gate. You've all heard about Janna Top and how she can just bring Smite, but you can actually do the same thing with other support champions. And Nesty is pulling out a Smite Bard mid. This is going to be so fun to watch.
It's like I was so sure we were getting the Lulu mid, but no, it's the Bard. So I feel like now I understand Uniboy a little bit more. He's like, I don't want to deal with this crap. Just give me something that won't die. Oh boy, this is going to be fun. Bard mid on our first game. Enchanter, double smites. We're going to get a lot of Bard roams, and I guess Uniboy is just going to free farm.
So we are going to see a more standard setup, as in standard by saying that the smite is going to be top. So essentially how you should read this is Bard is still technically top, but he's not going to be playing top that much. And I really like this fake out that they did. Gragas is not a champion that can threaten your tower, so essentially they used Tryndamere, and that was why I was thinking, why would you show the Tryndamere that early? And I guess this is the reason why. So they faked out the Gragas, not a tower pushing champion, and then they counter with a Bard that can roam the map without getting punished. This is some 200 IQ 5-head drafting coming out from DCG, but I will say that this strategy has not been that successful overall in professional games, because in professional games, a lot of times what happens is the enemy top laner is not just going to idly sit in top lane and try to push your tower down. He's actually going to join the fight, and they can coordinate well enough where they can keep their top laner in the game and still have that impact. So we're going to find out if this strategy can work in the pro level.
We're getting a good test case right now. This is an interesting start to things, and I do love that Deep Cross just decided not to hide anything, not to hold their strategies whatsoever. It's like, no, out of the gates swinging on game number 1 of the split as they get into it. This is just going to be so much fun. We will keep an eye on the bot lane. I do feel like we have to keep it locked down here because unlike last season where bot lane was in a very a sad place to be if you wanted to have impact, now it's very much the opposite. The teleport changes have really shifted the meta up a lot, and we will see the dredge line coming in. Enzo starting things off, but Lilvi is forced away very quickly. Christata actually going forward, but maybe stepping a little too far right now, and you can see Kongye sniffing around here for more. Hana's going to come in to try and help things off. Lilvi a little bit low, forced to flash away. They follow, isolated from the team, and first blood as Hana dashes forward to secure the kill. We're not done yet, Leaky. Clement. Enzo on the run, Leaky getting the chickens down, and Enzo, he's going. 2-0 for Deep Cross Gaming.
The Avenger JT squad beats the JT squad original, and that was just very unfortunate right there. A great timing by Woody to kind of slow down the auto attack coming in from Enzo. They didn't get the staggering blow in the position they wanted to, and that allowed Kriskata to actually kite back and pull J-Team out of formation. We saw Little V walking way too far forward, taking a bunch of damage, and when Diana came in, there was nothing left to save him. So very well played here, coming in from the DCG bot lane. They had Viego coming in from JT a lot faster. Kongre was in position, but unfortunately that auto attack not going off for Nautilus really hampered their efforts.
Yeah, Hana, you know, we talked about how he wasn't necessarily known for like these big plays, but he comes in just in time to help clean up. Let's take a look at this play again, because it starts with Kriskata actually going a little far out of position, but he gets behind Woody before the stun goes off, and that makes all the difference, it seems.
Yeah, we did see Enzo sort of hesitating on that play, took a lot of tower damage, and then Little V was in the front line by himself before Viego could come in, so they could focus fire him down, and TCG are not letting down the tempo, really getting the most out of this roaming Bard top.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a great start for DCG. I'm loving this right now. It's 2-0 at just 5 minutes into the game. You see Nesty, not only is he getting his roam on, he's able to clear the vision away, and they're pushing deep under tower. Lil V at half health. Enzo not 100% either. I was going to say there might be a dive, but I think they know Kongye is here, but this isn't what Kongye wants to be doing. He wants to be playing on the offense, not on the defense.
It definitely isn't, but they don't have a choice right here because DCG have an extra member in the Bard. Look at the top lane from Driver. Remember, his teleport can only go towards the tower, so he can actually only join this once they dive.
Magical Journey, Enzo, he has nowhere to go, and into the back goes Leaky to try and finish off Lil V. Doesn't quite have it, and they might leave him for dead, but he wants to finish the job before his ult runs out, and he manages it! Leaky gets the kill, hashtag worth, as Kongye should be able to clean him up, but Driver secures the kill. Still a well worthwhile trade.
An absolutely beautiful play. JT knew that DCG was there, but they weren't willing to expend the teleport first just to ward people off, so DCG still get a beautiful burst right down on Enzo, who was missing his flash. They get the kill, and then Tryndamere things happen to Lil V. I'm very sad to see that. Even with the ult reset coming in from the side of Driver, they were not able to prevent the death going down to Lil V. We're going to watch the angle of attack here again. Leaky instantly going on to Little V. Driver tries to save him, doesn't matter. They can't get the burst down through the Undying Rage, and he goes down for the second time in the game. JT, we talked about Little V being their main carry. If he's losing lane this hard, it's actually very difficult for Aphelios to get back up on the ground.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. I mean, Lil V definitely needs to get into the late game to be relevant here. Right now, just sitting on the Noon Quiver, he's not that far behind in items, but the key difference here is he's just not been able to stay safe, and, you know, they're shifting him up to the top side because they realize they can't get a whole lot done on the bottom. Meanwhile, Deep Cross Gaming, they're going to be able to go ahead and free secure the Mountain Dragon on the bottom side. And as the full swap goes in, it just seems like J-Team, they've ceded control of this. They may be favored comp-wise in the mid, but they're going to be going into it at a significant disadvantage.
Yeah, just such a fun comp to watch coming in from DCG here. But looking at the turret platings, J-Team does come out just a little bit further ahead. They already had a bit of turret damage here because Bard was not really playing laning phase whatsoever. I guess that's just the life of top laners in Season 12.
Yeah.
The correct way is not to play. Yeah. That is the sad thing about what makes this strategy actually work, is that, oops, sorry, I'm going to have to leave that for later.
Yeah, they're posturing a little bit here. Whoa, that roof, but Hana flashes away. Meanwhile, I think, yeah, Deep Cross weren't expecting that one as Kongye comes in and secures himself the first kill, this time on to Nesty. So a little bit, I don't want to say hubris, but clearly they kind of were caught asleep at the wheel there, Deep Cross.
Kind of an awkward play coming from them. They were chasing after J-Team members, but J-Team were actually stacked up as 5, so they had the extra member. They're very happy to just...
They dodged the Tempered Fate, but will they be able to stop this push? I don't think so.
That was the most casual engage I've ever seen. He was spotted well on his way, and he still uses his ultimate there. That was kind of baffling from J-Team, if I'm being completely honest.
Casual barrel enjoyer, you know? It's just Driver things.
Yeah, that was
there
like...
another charge? Oh, okay. They stopped
it. Okay.
That's that's good. That could have been a lot worse.
That felt like very Oktoberfest style from J-Team coming out here. It's just like, it's a drunken parade. I'm just going to throw my ult, see if it catches on to anything. But they do pay a price for it. There was no comeback potential as DCG took down their mid tower. And now we're going to go into this split push territory where if you're not grouped up as 5, Tryndamere, there's no one to answer Tryndamere right now. He's 40 plus CS up on Driver, so even if Gragas can survive the 1v1 laning, he's not going to be able to stop the Tryndamere.
Yeah, the problem is Lil V is a marked man at this point, right? Like, there's not a lot he's going to be able to do, and he's still just sitting on that Gale Force and his boots. Like, he is getting a little starved in this game, to be honest. And sure, Aphelios is going to be fine once he gets his items up, but the way the momentum keeps swinging here, I don't know if Deep Cross are going to give him that opportunity, and that was always the question mark. Is like, Lil V is fine if he gets into the late game unscathed, but he's having some trouble just because, well, the triple dive is triple diving. Yeah,
and I do have to mention that in the last team fight, it was J-Team that was trying to triple dive. So we really
forgot who was on what top roster.
Oh yeah, I'm not surprised. Sometimes you get confused. You see your old buddies in Nesty and Hana, and you just want to give them a good time over there. And unfortunately for J-Team, those mistakes were extremely costly, especially against champions that can snowball so well, like the Tryndamere, like Diana. So I really want to see how J-Team plays this. My personal feeling is they just have to wait it out. I don't think DCG are even going to entertain the possibility of a team fight. If I'm patient and forcing DCG to walk into them, not engaging up a ramp, well, you have Lil V, your main carrier, as an AD there.
Yeah, and just honestly a full item behind at this point. After that absolute bloodbath, Chris Scott goes back and manages to get the Runaans. It's looking a little bit rough right now. I mean, there's a significant lead. You talked about a Fed member in the late game making the difference for DCG and making up for the fact that they had 2 supports. Well, count them. You got 1, 2, 3 at this point that are approaching Fed status between Hana, Leaky, and Kriskata. So honestly, take your pick. I mean, things are looking great. As long as they continue to pull fights like that, J-Team are going to need to find a way to stabilize this.
Yeah, the having 2 supports making you overall weaker only comes into effect when everyone is at 6 items. Right now, I don't think J-Team are on that pathway to getting 6 items on their players. So I don't think DCG had that worry in them whatsoever. And, we were talking about J-Team having the superior sort of 5v5 mid-game composition. That's also out the window. So right now, I think J-Team, they are relegated to just sitting underneath their towers, trying to pick up whatever waves they can, and hopefully dragging this until DCG can make a mistake.
Yeah, not being able to pick up a dragon does hurt a little bit too, because it does mean that DCG can pick up some momentum. Looking at the potential drakes that could be spawning for the Rift, definitely a lot of power in the pocket. Hana and Woody going to be able to fire down this Rift Herald as well, so we should be seeing that popped probably, I want to say, down the mid lane to free things up. I mean, if you look at where the vision is going, it's really all in that jungle behind the pit right now, and there's really not much J-Team can do to stop this. So much mobility despite the lack of teleports too, especially when you look at like the individual champion move speeds and things like that.
That's coming out here. This has been very popular with her. It's essentially a bruiser build with a lot of wave clear. With the Runaan's Hurricane and the Titanic Hydra, you can actually double up on Titanic Hydra's passive, and that just demolishes waves extremely quickly. You can have great side lane potential, and with Zeri's ability to just move across terrain, you can actually join your team, which is usually in the middle of the map, very quickly with this sort of build. So that's why we're seeing Zeri be such a power pick and why she's banned so often on the red side. Even though she might start out as an AD carry, you can really play her in any lane. She actually has good survivability on the side lanes, especially with this build.
Yeah, a really interesting kit, right? She combines a lot of like interesting champions and covers up some of their weaknesses. Like the burst fire thing reminds me a little bit of like what Jinx can do. Got kind of like a zap-like ability as well. But also, the dash, more like a Lucian or a Graves, and the safety there. Also the shielding. I mean, that's massive. The fact that she can really sustain herself really well, and add to the fact that you have such a emphasis on some of these enchanter champions that can grant shields. Honestly, it's small wonder why she gets banned so often, and we're also seeing why right here. An interesting choice by J-Team not to ban that away, and also Deep Cross, remember, they banned like some of the other meta choices. The Jinx got removed early on blue side.
Yeah, really nice banning coming in from DCG. They basically took away J-Team's best champions. Uniboy's Zoe is legendary. Little V has been known for his Jinx play before Aphelios was even a thing on the Rift. So well done there. But DCG might be poking a little bit too deep right here.
There we go, the Moonfall! Oh, do not connect with the Tempered Fate on the Bard, so that actually splits things up and gives an opportunity here for J-Team to come right back into this. But will it be enough? They actually whip on a little bit. The Polymorph comes through, and Uniboy gets blown up as they turn around, realizing there are no cooldowns left here, as J-Team are easy pickings left, right, and center. Everyone's picking up kills, and it is a clean wipe on the Rift.
A perfect ace coming from DCG, and I have to say, the MVP of that fight for me was definitely Woody. A perfect polymorph as Uniboy was coming in. He didn't even get to cast his ultimate. Nobody was stunned by the Lissandra. He just goes down immediately. Uniboy, welcome back to the PCS. We're going to watch this again. This is actually a perfect fight scenario for J-Team. They can use the terrain to keep Little V relatively safe and can focus on targets as they come in. But watch this. Lissandra comes in, instantly polymorph, doesn't get to cast the ultimate, dies instantly. There is no crowd control left, and DCG get free access into the back.
And great chugging of the aggro, too. You know, you talked about how Cascada on the Zeri can sustain a little bit more, even tanked up a little bit of the tower shots. Honestly, Deep Cross, they are very ahead in this game, but they are playing just so well together, really working with the kits that they have in each of their champions. And even though some individual misfires may happen here or there, they always have something left in the tank, whereas J-Team, you know, they're just a little all over the place there. They kind of got gifted that setup and just could not execute.
Oh no, I feel like this happens with J-Team every split, where, you know, they come in with super high expectations and they get smashed in the first week. I love it though. Like, I love when teams that are supposed to win kind of lose to the proverbial underdogs coming in here. DCG with Hana and Nesty that were J-Team's previous mid jungle that gave them that first seed in 2020 spring are getting a very sweet revenge here.
Yeah, this is looking good for Deep Cross in their debut on this one. So many new squads coming in, so many new names, but also familiar faces on those teams. Looking to close this one out right now. They just have everything on the map. Looking for the Tempered Fate stop up. They do manage to catch out Lil V. A timely barrel from Driver will stop that before it starts, but honestly, the cooldowns, they don't have to care. They can just keep on pushing as they own all of the Rift right now.
Yeah, nothing J-Team can do, and just look at this gold deficit at this point. They're close to being 10,000 gold behind before the 25-minute mark. So DCG, honestly, they could contemplate just diving this tower here, especially with seeing Driver without the ultimate. They can't reset the Tryndamere anymore. I'm pretty certain if DCG want to go, they can actually just wipe J-Team, and I think J-Team knows it too, so they're just giving up on this outer tower.
Yeah, that one's going to be fired down pretty quickly here. So not a whole lot J-Team can do, but just see their world get smaller and smaller right now. The miracle fight that could come for them, it seems like they need to account for so many things. And on top of that, the fact that, as you said, they're just about 10,000 gold in the hole. So there's not a whole lot they can do except just try to hold on for dear life. You do see Lil V starting to stack up a couple of items. He will be instrumental if they are going to turn anything. But here we go again. We are going to see another Hextech Dragon secured. This should be that soul pickup, and here we go. It just keeps getting tougher and tougher for J-Team to do much about it.
Oof, and this is the perfect Drake if you have full map control and you're running a bunch of side laners, because this Drake allows you to get slows on your auto attack. It's very much like a static Shiv in its making. And what this means is that J-Team are going to find it even harder to venture out onto their base or even secure their own jungle. There's so much catch potential coming from DCG. And like we talked about in draft, J-Team actually don't have good comeback mechanics. If you're talking about Gragas and Lissandra late game, these are kind of half of champions. They do engage and they tank, but they're very limited in their roles. And I just have to say, I feel like J-Team missed their window. They played the early game execution just way too poorly against a team that can snowball super hard with this Tryndamere and Diana.
Yeah, Leaky could get caught here, but honestly, he's still Tryndamere, so I'm not even entirely worried that he might just not take someone down with him as the rest of the team comes in. The Tempered Fate lands, the cavalry of DCG have arrived, and they may shut down one, but they shall pay dearly as Deep Cross just death by 1,000 deep cuts. And it's going to be Kongye Driver already out for the trade of Leaky, and now with the numbers deficit, they just keep on pushing here.
If you thought Tryndamere surviving for over 7 seconds with his ultimate was very annoying, well, Nesty just added 2.5 seconds to that with the stasis coming down, so he was alive for a very, very long time. He definitely should have been punished if he was on any other champion, but I'm just going to say, for Leaky, that was all calculated, and they do get another successful trade.
Yeah, go ahead and give the other enemy team a little bit of gold, give them some false hope, go ahead and set things up. It's just another showcase of how mobile this Deep Cross squad is right now on the map and can just do so much work for it. And it does net them an inhibitor. Overall, net win, just every play seems to be high percentage for them. And yeah, Kongye, you can actually see someone recalling. Well, maybe not. And it doesn't really matter. If you wanted to go for him, he's been shut down this game. And this is kind of reminiscent of some of the HKA games of the past where he doesn't get ahead. You don't really see them do a whole lot. Not necessarily his fault, but putting it all on Lilvi for the late game is going to be tough because they just keep losing in these engagements. As you said, there's not a lot else they can do with the composition. They don't have a lot of good comeback mechanics or honestly even good insurance for losing out in the early and the mid game. So it's going to be tough for them to find an answer in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, we can't talk about how ideally this should have gone from J-Team. They have a composition that can catch out one target really easily. As we see Nesty going in for
catching out targets. Oh, bye, Enzo. Man, very scary. Oh, no, another Tempered Fate lands, this time mid-jump on Driver. And I don't think he's going to be doing a whole lot as Uniboy comes in to try and make a play, but just no damage left. So they managed to still clean up too. Enzo, Uniboy both down into the base, go Deep Cross, and waiting for those minions to climb their way in so they can try and push this to finish.
There was nothing subtle about DCG's offense right there. They just walked it down mid lane, and they were in full vision of J-Team, but J-Team still could not respond because of that Tempered Fate, because of the Hextech Drake going over there. There's too much catch potential, and now DCG are looking at that potential first win of the PCS in 2022.
Yeah, they're just letting this one go. For right now, doing the damage, not pushing too far forward, not giving an opportunity for comeback, and of course they can just walk on through. Hex gates are open, as are Magical Journeys. It's just another portal they can jump through. And with the Baron up and running, and it's just free season on this one, it seems like it's pretty much all over but the Nexus, Clement.
Yeah, we're going to find out if Kongye can get a lucky steal right here. He has no vision in the Baron pit so far. He's going to have to guess on this one.
They turn for it. They don't really need the Baron. In fact, they just need the kill. Cascada goes for a godlike on this one as they then collapse in. Massive moonfall. The double kill for the Zeri. Even further, Lil V deleted and no one left. That is gotta be GG.
That's definitely GG. And J-Team, the team with the original brand, cannot beat the mid laner and the jungler that they let go. The ones that you let go are always the one you, I guess, love the most or are going to hurt you the most in the future. And congratulations to DCG, Deep Cross Gaming, with this first win of the PCS.
Absolutely well done as they pull out a spectacular performance on the triple dive composition and showcasing, despite a handful of nerfs, Zeri is still a pick worth banning all the time. I do love it.
Look at that.
Yeah, they're pulling out the numbers. Everybody knows.
They know all of them were former J-Team players at one point, so they're basically putting up the nameplates on when they served J-Team and when they were released. This is the Avengers squad, and they came prepared.
Oh boy, absolutely. Honestly, what a fantastic one. I'd love to see this made into a Marvel film because that was definitely quite a lot of action, but it was all one-sided, unfortunately, for the side of J-Team. Deep Cross making a hell of a statement to kick things off and showing off their previous J-Team credentials in the process. You gotta love it when the teams always have something extra. Reminds me of the old Machi hype video stuff that would happen at the end of the screen, maybe a little bit of Dancing with the Cat, something like that.
If you guys don't know, Machi is no longer with us, but their spirit lives on and with a lot of their players. Congrats to Deep Cross Gaming again. We do have to talk about the idea of this game from J-Team and where they failed their execution. the ideal type for how they should have handled that first Drake fight is you just wait on the dragon. You wait for whoever comes in first, whether it's Diana or whether it's Tryndamere. You blow that target up, you get the reset from Viego, and then you just carry on the team fight from there. But I don't know why, but Enzo went for a very risky engage that pulled the entire team up onto a ramp where they were completely funneled in, and then you saw Little V as an AD carry have to flash over a Drake pit to join the fight. That was just not how you should have handled it, and because of such a one-sided affair that fight was, I felt like the game was just gone and over at that point.
Yeah, that seems like that was like kind of indicative of what the rest of the game was going to look like. But there were so many moments where there were head scratcher engages, right? I mean, Enzo is not the only one. We saw Driver really trying for it and just a barrel blown left or right. And it's like, well, you've kind of just given away a tool, even if you don't get punished for it in the moment. So it does seem like a number of the J team members were really just not sure when they should go. And the instinct was to pull the trigger, and it just didn't really work most of the time. By the time they were all fired up on the same page, something inevitably went wrong. They were down in the gold game, or, you know, honestly, some clutch plays on Deep Cross preventing things. That polymorph on Uniboy's Lissandra was beautiful, and you can call it unlucky all you want, but, you know, they just didn't pick the best times to go in. And even when they got something, like when they ganged up on Leaky, they ended up paying for it.
Yeah, that's, I think the bigger question for J-Team is how are they going to combine the very aggressive tendencies that we have seen from Uniboy and Kongyue in their past with the sort of slow and meticulous style that we see coming out from Driver and Lil V. They really are a, you know, they are a tale of two cities at this point, where I feel like they have very different styles, and you can kind of see it in their first game where they're just not on the same page. It's only the first week of the PCS. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of growing pains for a lot of these teams, but definitely not the performance that we expected from J-Team. I think a lot of us, and you know, we just talked about Glenn putting them at the top of the PCS, and personally for me, I put them in the top 3 in the rankings as well. This was not exactly the performance that I expected to see.
No, me as well. You know, I consider this team to be at the very least in the top 4 of the standings, but the way they were playing was just not quite all on the same page. You know, perhaps if we were playing best ofs, we'd see some adaptation and see how it goes, but as it stands in a best of 1 situation, they just never got it together, and you can see the gold game was a bit of a builder, but then it just spiraled out of control past that 20-minute mark. A huge amount of damage dealt by the Zeri. Criscata, welcome to the PCS. Enjoy your stay at 20K. And he was cleaning up, but he was also a huge part of it. I do want to give a big shout out to Hana as well, because, man, those were some beautiful moonfalls that were coming in to set up the play as they went for the deep dive. Everybody was coming to the party. I love the novel use of the Bard as well. The double enchanter strategy certainly can work, and clearly J-Team were not prepared to handle it.
And I just want to say the way the double, the smite top lane is supposed to work is that you're supposed to fall behind in gold and fall behind in EXP and then gain that back through objective bounties. That's actually how that strategy works, but they were so far ahead that it didn't even matter.
So yeah, I mean, it's all banked up at that point.
Yeah, so we got to see the pure upside of this composition, and once again, if you look at the gold graph, it really was that Drake fight that I felt like doomed most of this. We saw a 3,000 gold spike at that first Drake, and congratulations to Criscata, the first Zeri of the PCS,
wow,
and his first chance to showcase what he could do, coming in from the LSC, having a great performance. He's really proving that this collegiate system could work out on the big stages.
Produces some serious talent, 90+% gold or kill participation, I should say, and he did over a third of his team's damage. He wasn't just cleaning up kills, he was dishing it out, and I think Zeri is probably going to be banned the rest of the day, Clement, based on that performance.
Yeah, I know a lot of the fans of the PCS have been saying that, oh, the talent is stagnating, we're seeing the same faces year on, year end. Well, guess what? Criscata and the LSC is coming to shake things up.
I am so excited, and we have 3 more fantastic games on the horizon to see how it all goes, but we got to take a quick break. When we return, Frank Esports will take on Impunity.